コンピューター。
はい。
What, you thought I was actually sleeping? You fools. I've been up for hours, plotting my next move. It's still dark outside, and I'm up. And you know why? It's really simple. You see, it's called the Sigma Grind Set. Yes. Stay hard. I could never be soft in the morning. Hey guys, what's up? Yokai1 here. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. So today I wanted to talk about why you, and specifically I do mean you, shouldn't move to Japan. Here's why. So don't get me wrong, while I'm so grateful that I've been able to live in Japan for the past 2 years, and I've made so many friends in Japan and been to some of the most beautiful places that I've ever seen in my life, and surprise, I got married in Japan. While Japan works for me and I'm really grateful to be here, and I intend to continue living here. Japan works for me, but I don't think it works for most people. And I don't think it works for most people that come here. So the point of this video is not to discourage anyone that wants to come to Japan and follow their dreams by any means, or by all means. If your heart is set on living in Japan and you have a plan, then go for it. But what I'm saying is that you need to consider how difficult it is for Japanese people to start their own businesses, to get their dream job, whatever it is, and just consider the added extra difficulty that you have as a foreigner. And what I mean by that is, for example, when you're living in Japan, obviously you need someone to sponsor your visa at all times. And you can't live in Japan without a visa because you're an illegal immigrant at that point. So in most cases, you're going to have a work visa. And from what I've heard from my friends that have work visas is they don't like their job. The work environment is it's not like what it is in America or maybe in your home country. And they basically have you by the proverbial balls because you are reliant on them to sponsor your visa so that you can continue living in Japan. So there's basically really no room for error when it comes to having a plan and obviously having a visa. So you need to, if you're still planning to come to Japan after this video, then you need to have a clear plan of what you're going to do and the steps that you're going to take. And when you make your visa application, you need to write that into your application. Because if you do change your visa to something that you are more interested in doing, say you want to start a business or whatever, they will look at your original visa application and decide, did you complete what you came here to do? And are you still following those steps that you had originally planned? Like I said, it's very difficult to switch careers in Japan. you have to really have a clear path in order to get the visa that you want. And it's just a really good idea to decide those things before you come to Japan. And the other point that I wanted to make is that even if your Japanese is really, really good, it doesn't mean that you're going to have any easier of a time, let's say, starting a business or doing an unconventional career path. Because at the end of the day, even if your Japanese is good, you're still a foreigner. It doesn't change that fact. And it may allow you some privileges and make some things a little bit easier. But all in all, it really doesn't make that much of a difference as far as when it comes to visas and living in Japan. It can make your day-to-day life a lot easier, of course. But when it comes to careers and stuff, it really doesn't change much. Okay, so I have a list here of some of the reasons why Japan may not be for you. If any of these points turn you off from Japan, then you may want to reconsider if you're planning on living in Japan. So the first one is, like I said earlier, is being tied to a visa. So basically, in order to stay in Japan, you're basically tied to a sponsor, whether it be your school or your work, your boss, or if you're on a spousal visa, then your spouse. Basically, you're always at the whim of someone else. You could always be fired, you could always be kicked out of school, you could always be divorced. You're always going to be beholden to someone else for your ability to stay in the country, which is not the best. The other thing is the work culture, which I'm sure everyone has heard at this point, how bad the work culture is. I knew it was bad when I lived in America. What I've realized is that it's worse than people portray it to be, or it could be not as bad as people portray it to be, depending on the company that you're hired by. It's not like you can easily quit, and you can get into another company, but it's not so easy as it would be in your home country as quitting your job and then just getting a new job, because there's the visa aspect and you are on a strict time limit. Once you're either fired or you quit your job, you don't have all the time in the world to get a new job. So yeah, the work culture is pretty bad. Bosses are strict. They expect more out of you than they probably do in your home country. Overtime with no overtime pay, things like that. The next one is, don't come if you don't like the heat. I'm from Florida, so I'm used to the heat, and it's much like in Florida. It gets very wet in the summer, wet and hot and sticky, and it's unpleasant. But if you're used to it, then you're used to it. It's one of those things. But if you don't like the heat, then you're going to be in a world of hurt. The next one is kind of along the same lines as that, is natural disasters. In Florida, we have hurricanes. Here they have earthquakes. Unless you live in like England or something, there's, wherever you live, there's going to be something that's going to kill you. I got used to earthquakes pretty fast. Some people don't get used to them, and they do happen a lot, especially around this time of year. It's just an unavoidable part of life here, and also there's the threat of tsunamis, and there's also typhoons. So if you are risk averse, if you value your life, don't come to Japan. No, yeah, if you can't handle earthquakes and things like that, then you're going to have a hard time. Another thing is there's a lot of rules. Japanese people love rules. They love following rules, and they love red tape. For example, I had a JP Post account, a bank account, and I was never able to put money into it after I made the account. I was never able to deposit money. So I went to the counter at the bank and asked for help. And they wanted to know my password for my bank account. I didn't know it by heart, and I didn't have it on me. It came by mail to my apartment, but my apartment wasn't that far away. So I was just like, okay, let me go home and get it and come back. And they were like, no, 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 you have to do it our way. We are going to, he made like 3 phone calls, and he gave me this form to sign out, to fill out so that he could send me a new password by mail. So I had to fill out this form, and then I made like a small like mistake on the form, and he was like, this is unacceptable. So he made me fill out the form from the start all over again, and I filled out multiple forms. It took about 2 hours, made me late, and then I had to wait a week for a paper to come that I already had in my house, in my apartment. Just expect a lot of things that don't make sense when you're going to, whether it's the Kuyakusho, trying to get a SIM card, just so many things that don't make sense. Which brings me to another point that I don't have written down, but you will be discriminated against with some apartment companies, loans, things like that. If you try to buy something on payment plan, it's a little bit more difficult if you're a foreigner. And the reason is because, also getting a SIM card, like I said, the reason is because they expect that as a foreigner, you are going to, at some point, return home. And in that sense, you are a flight risk, basically. They don't want to lose money on you, which I guess in a way is understandable. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. So if you're someone that doesn't follow rules, that doesn't like to follow the law, you're going to have a really bad time here. So they have a 99% conviction rate, which is if they try you for whatever you did. If they don't try you and they just let you go, then that's fine. But if you go to court, then you're going to jail. So, and the other thing is, they can hold you, I think, up to 28 days, without giving you a phone call, without, they're going to interrogate you. And then even after those 28 days or whatever it is up, then they can file to keep you longer before they decide. Basically, they're trying to get you to make a confession to whatever you did. And then once you confess, then they decide from there if they want to charge you or not. And if they do decide to charge you, and by the way, if they keep you for 28 days and you don't confess, then they are going to charge you most likely, and you are probably going to be deported or go to jail. But I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. So another thing is you are held to a different standard as a foreigner. And what I mean by that is that, let's say you go to a bar and you get in a fight with a Japanese person, and he starts hitting you, and you are trying to defend yourself, and in defending yourself you hit back, and you even minorly injure that Japanese person. Then when this eventually goes to court, they are going to side with the Japanese person even if they were the aggressor in the situation, and you could be legally liable for whatever assault or whatever damages that you caused. And it's fucked up, and but that's just the way it is, and you have to accept it. It sucks. It's very difficult to make friends here with Japanese people. In America, we talk to everybody, and people make friends just saying hi on the street. And that doesn't happen here, because people don't talk on the street. People don't talk to each other unless you know each other. And that creates a very rigid barrier that's hard to cross into friendship. Unless you're in some kind of social club or sports club or something where you can get to know someone over a long period of time, it's pretty difficult to make friends with Japanese people, unfortunately. And as my final point, you are never going to be Japanese, and you need to accept that. I think a lot of people come to Japan and they've kind of watched J-drama or anime that depict kind of slice of life, Japanese life, that really isn't an accurate portrayal in the first place, but they kind of want to live this ideal life and kind of live a Japanese life. And there's also like the stereotype of like the weeaboos who, I really hope those kind of things have died out at this point, but I'm sure those people exist. No matter how good at Japanese you get, you are never going to be Japanese. You're never going to be the protagonist of an anime or a J-drama or anything like that. So if that is your reason for coming to Japan, you need to reconsider, because it's a fantasy. It's never going to happen. And no matter how good you are at Japanese, no matter how good your pitch accent is, by the way, I have been working on a video on pitch accent for a long time. I've gone and interviewed some Japanese people and just filmed a lot of content about pitch accent as kind of a primer to pitch accent. Not that I'm an expert at it by any means. As a learner myself, I'm kind of documenting as I go and the things that I learn, and spreading that knowledge to other people in the hopes that that by condensing a lot of knowledge into one kind of guide will help people and help spread accurate information about pitch accent. Even if your pitch accent is perfect and your Japanese is perfect, like native level, people aren't going to look at you as a Japanese person. So if you have those aspirations in mind, you should find better motivations and find better reasons for coming to Japan. On the other hand, if coming to Japan is your dream and you have a clear goal and you know what you want to do and you are informed and you've made up your mind, then I'm not going to discourage you from coming to Japan. I think it's a great place. I'm very grateful that I'm able to live here, and fingers crossed, I hope that I can continue to live here for a extended period of time. And that's all I have to say. If you are one of these people, if any of these things trigger you, maybe you shouldn't come to Japan. Maybe Japan's not for you. Stay tuned for my pitch accent video. It's going to be a long one. You're going to love it. And also, don't forget to do the thing. You know what thing I'm talking about. Do the thing, guys. Stay tuned. Peace.